This is a Rough Tiger production.
And you, and you, and you, and you were there. Some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful.
Woo.
Greetings.
We are back. This is Dream Idiots. Hi, everybody. Hi, Bryan.
Hey there, Morris. How are you?
I'm doing all right. If you're new to the show, welcome aboard. Each week, my co-host Bryan and I, we tell stories to each other, sometimes from history, sometimes not. There's quizzes. There's all kinds of fun stuff. And you can reach us at a variety of places, websites, which are, Mr. Bryan.
The website is dreamidiots.com. You can find us on pretty much every single platform out there. We're on Instagram at Dream Idiots. We're on Facebook at Dream Idiots. You can even email us at dreamidiotspodcast@gmail.com. And if you don't mind, shoot us 5 stars, give us a review when you have a chance. That helps us climb the charts as well. We appreciate it. And actually,
Cool.
I can tell you that I happened to log in and look at our stats. We're close to around 2,000 downloads just on Apple. I'm not sure about the other platforms, but we also have a boatload of downloads in the US, but we now have downloads in India, the UK, Austria, Canada, Australia, Saudi Arabia, New Zealand, Philippines, Bangladesh, Germany, France, Ireland, Spain, Switzerland, Hungary, Greece, Zimbabwe, Portugal, Iraq, Nigeria, Hong Kong, Japan, Turkey, and Morocco.
Those are countries, correct?
Those are countries, I believe.
Okay.
And we're
including Tennessee. We had a lot of downloads in Tennessee this last week, which is awesome.
We've had downloads in all but like 10 states are left. No one in I think Alabama or Mississippi have found us yet, which is no surprise. But I happened to notice that a few days ago, someone I think downloaded every single episode we've done in Cleveland, Tennessee. So thank you, whoever you are.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thanks. Welcome aboard. We've got a few short announcements to make before we get started with today's stories. Our first story is that it is Black History Month as this episode drops on February 7th. So we hope that wherever you live, you're getting to celebrate the stories of African-American history here in the United States, given that some folks are trying to apparently erase that chapter of our history. But we are putting together a special episode featuring our stories that involve Black Americans here at Dream Idiots. We've done a few stories on that, so Bryan's going to put together a special Black History Month celebration for us that will be released later in the month, so be on the lookout for that. And Bryan, you have an announcement real quick, right?
Just one small thing, just because all the things that I research for Dream Idiots wind up living in my search history. I occasionally get these random bizarre updates of things that I wouldn't ordinarily probably even see. But 3 weeks ago, I did a story on Bessie Coleman, the African-American pilot and barnstormer and just exceptionally cool American. This woman who her birthday was 131 years ago on January 26th, I believe. And she, in the very, very early stages of the 20th century, she would refuse to perform unless Black folks were allowed to attend the events at these various air shows. If it was a white only audience, she wouldn't go on. So I think that's super cool. And the thing I saw in the news is that Mattel has this line of commemorative Barbie dolls, and they're actually doing a Bessie Coleman Barbie doll. Whatever you think, I mean, I guess I have sort of mixed feelings about Barbie doll, because I think Barbie doll was the one that said math is hard, a couple decades ago. But nevertheless, it feels like Mattel may be trying to honor someone who actually is worth remembering. So I don't know. I thought that was at least interesting. Hopefully it's a good thing. It's intended to be a kind remembrance, I think.
That sounds like a Malibu Stacy bit from The Simpsons. Math is hard.
No, that was genuine. 25 or 30 years ago, there
Wow.
was a hand crank. There was a Barbie doll where you could pull the cord, and I swear this is true. And she said a selection of 5 or 6 different things, but one of them was literally math is hard, and people, of course, like, come on. I mean, there are plenty of women and girls now who are studying STEM. This is ridiculous and offensive. So, cut it out. So I think they quickly changed it. But I would have to go back and look.
My wife is a much better mathematician than I. She's a scientist.
Right.
I am not the scientist in the house. Cool, very cool. So look for that Bessie Coleman commemorative doll. Very awesome.
Yeah.
Going into Black History Month. I go first because it's an even numbered episode 56. And Bryan, I do have a couple of I have at least one Black History Month story that I'll get to later in the month. But for now, I've got something that I put together because this is something I thought about for a long time. And in the spirit of Dream Idiot's ongoing fascination with language, you've done stories on malaprops and puns. I've done some horrific puns in that ongoing college game that you make me do.
Mm-hmm.
We've also done pieces on Americana with the American Chautauqua, Burma shave. I present now to you, Bryan, common lingo from the circus and carnival life.
Okay.
So, Bryan, can you hear the roar of the grease paint? Can you smell the crowd, Bryan?
Mm-hmm.
Did you go to the carnival much when you were a kid, or the circus?
There were a couple occasions in good old San Antonio, Texas. As I recall, the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus would come to the
Joe and Harry
Freeman Coliseum.
Yeah.
And it stank to high heaven, as I recall. And I, when I was a small kid, I, of course, loved it. As I got a little bit older, I realized, wait, this seems incredibly cruel to elephants and other animals. I definitely liked it when I was a kid. Cotton candy and just the sheer insanity of it.
Yeah, and I went to a fair share of carnivals and a couple circuses here and there.
The rodeo always had the carnival attached. Right.
I was going to say that the rodeo had a carnival-like atmosphere to it, and I certainly went to more rodeos than I did carnivals. I actually know someone who saw an acrobat die at a circus performance. And of course, the reason they have 3 rings is so if something bad happens in one of the rings, you can just put the spotlight on another ring.
Right.
But I would like to talk for a little bit about the kind of language that was used. Let's take a look at some of these words and phrases. First of all, the term carnival. Do you know where that comes from, Bryan?
Carnival. I don't think I do. No.
Well, I didn't either. It's a term which means the time of mirth and fun and merriment before Lent starts on the Christian calendar.
Sure.
So we have a nice carnival when we drink our wine and eat our whatever it is we give up for Lent, meat. I usually give up sawing between my toes with a carpet knife for Lent, that kind of stuff. But carnival, that's where it comes from. So what I've done is I've divided up this list I've got, and I found some really great websites that I'll talk about when I get to my sources. But I've divided it up into people, places, things, actions, and then a list I call my favorites of words that I've heard this is mainly carnival lingo, but some of it applies to circus as well. Let's start off with some easy ones. What's the mark? This is under people. What's the mark? What's your mark when you're at the carnival?
What's your mark?
What's a mark?
It's the spot where you stand in theater. It's
a person. It's a person. Remember, this is a list of people.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying. What's your mark? I have no idea.
Your mark is your target. It's the person you're trying to separate from their money. You see your mark. It's also the term you use in con jobs, right? So who's your mark?
Right.
With that in mind, what's a Rube or a Reuben? Hey, Rube. You Rube, you sap.
It's someone who's going to be taken advantage of. It's kind of like your mark, isn't it? No,
it is. It is a lot like your mark. Although
someone who's stupid.
There's a bit more snideness involved, I think, in this term. It's got one of your favorite variations. It's a variation of the word yokel, which I know is one of your favorites. but some other variations of this are Reuben, Rube, sap, mark, yokel, Elmer, which I like a lot, a towner, which is a variation of townie, somebody coming from the town, a sucker, a hayseed, and a chump.
Yeah, hayseed's good.
Hayseed's good too. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a shell? Shell's a great word.
A shill's like a carnival barker. I mean, isn't a shill the person who's come on down?
No, that's the barker. A shill is someone who poses as a mark, but wins the game. So if you've got a game that you're trying to get marks into, a shill is someone who knows how the game works and wins the prize and walks away. So they're posing as a sap or a mark
in order to drive the pot up, or
right. And see how easy it is. Look, even this guy did it. Look how he's dressed. So what's a joey? A joey is a clown. A joey is slang for a clown, named after Joe Grimaldi, who was a famous European clown. So here come the joeys, here come the clowns.
It's also a baby kangaroo, but go ahead.
It is. Now, if you've got a bunch of rides, you might need a waxy. A bunch of rides and devices that you need repair. You need a waxy, who's just a slang for a repairman. Okay. Don't worry, the waxy's on it. Here's a good word that I know we've heard. Hey, here comes a looky-loo.
Oh, so someone who just spectates and pretends like they're going to engage in it, but never do. Right.
Absolutely. We also use this in terms of rubberneckers at accidents, but here specifically, it's a person who does lots of watching but no spending at all. Right. They're just a looky-loo.
Right.
Now, this is a great term. Lot lice.
Lot of lice. Oh shit! My first instinct is that it's close to a looky-loo. That someone who's broke, has the money, is just taking up space.
It's someone who shows up. They show up early just to watch the tents go up. They're so ready to watch the carnival. They're just there to watch the tents and everything come into shape. So they sit out in the field and just bring a lunch and sit there and watch.
Okay.
It's related somewhat to the lot lizard, which is a very horrible term used to denote people who like to hang out in the carnival lot because they like to have relationships with the carnival workers reliably. Lot lizards. We also call lounge lizards as well, right? As a variation of that one. Here's another great word. What's a gazoonie?
A gazoonie.
A gazoonie.
I have no idea.
It's an itinerant day worker who may or may not understand the carnival life, but they come in to help out for the day. Mm-hmm. Also known as a greenie or a gazoonie. It could also be someone who's just joined the carnival life. So a newbie.
Okay.
The A&S man, not nearly as dirty as it sounds. Who is the A&S man?
The A&S man. The alcohol and shit man. No. I don't know.
You ever been to a carnival and there's someone there saying, "Hey, I bet I can guess your age and weight."
Oh, okay.
A&S stands for age and scale.
Okay.
And
age and sex.
what's the well, you never know. But this is a variation of hanky pank, and I'll get to what that is in a moment as to why you have a game like this. Now, this is a word for our buddy Joe, longtime listener down in Schertz, Texas. What's a cowboy? Oh, here comes the cowboy. This is a term that Joe loves to use.
A cowboy in a carnival. I don't know.
A cowboy is basically somebody who's just a pain in the ass, a troublemaker. Like, Jesus, he's such a cowboy, right? Joe loves that term. A couple of cowboys coming at us. He loves that term. You've got a lot of rides at the carnival, correct? So someone who runs these things, you might call them a ride jock, a ride monkey, or a ride boy. Okay. Not a bad job to have.
Yeah, sure.
Now here's a really cool term. And if Face Man from the A-Team ever quit the A-Team, he would go in this job, the patch. What does the patch do you think?
Fixes problems.
He does. He actually handles local law enforcement and customer complaints.
Okay, yeah.
Passing along money or
customer service or
appropriate. That's right.
Right.
Here's a couple of names that are related. Don E. Kerr, that's D-O-N, middle initial E, K-E-R-R. And another name, Robin, as in Robin Williams, last name Marks, as in Carl or Groucho. So Don E. Kerr and Robin Marks.
Don E. Kerr and Robin Marks. I don't know. No clue.
These are pseudonyms that are often given out by carnival workers. Donaker is slang for a toilet in the carnival.
Okay.
And Robin Marks is what they do. What are you doing? We're Robin Marks. So there might be pseudonyms given out so they don't get in trouble. What's my name? My name's Robin Marks. Speaking of which, let's move to places. I've already mentioned the Donaker, a toilet or a bathroom. Here's a terrifying phrase: clown alley.
Clown alley. So somewhere behind the scenes, backstage, where they're hanging out. No,
it's where the clowns hang out, man. Smoke their cigars and cigarettes
Right,
where they
okay.
go do their thing in the main show. That's right. Then you've got two different kinds of joints. You've got a garbage joint where they sell garbage. Garbage are cheap novelties and trinkets
Oh, okay.
where you can buy just the crap that they buy
Right,
by the
right.
gross and sell for a buck and make a ton of money. A grease joint would be a burger or hot dog stand where you
Sure.
can get a sandwich or some hot food.
Right. Greasy spoon. Right.
That's right. Along the lines of clown alley, what's the backyard? It's mainly used in circuses, I think.
Backyard is where the various circus animals hang out.
Yeah, that's part of it, but it's basically the entire part of the circus that's out of bounds to the patrons, to the marks and
Okay.
the customers.
Okay.
It's where everybody hangs out. It's where you keep the animals. It's where you keep your tools of the trade. It's where your wagons that you live in are.
Okay.
Okay. The doghouse. The doghouse is where the ride boy might sit. It's the little bitty booth where the person who operates the ride will
Where
sit.
the ride is. Okay. Right.
Should you have that?
Okay.
One of my favorites. The mitt, MITT, the mitt camp.
The Mitt what?
Camp.
The Mitt Camp. No idea.
It's a fortune telling booth. Come here, let me read your mitt. Let me read your paws. And here's a great term: the right hand side. If you're in good shape with the owners and with the managers, your booths are set up on the right hand side as you enter the grounds because people naturally will have a tendency to go to the right hand side first.
Right. Sure.
You get better traffic and you make more money. Okay, so that takes care of places. Let's take a look at things. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. And eventually I'm going to do, because I think this is where it comes, I'm eventually going to do an episode on Polari, the language of the theater and the circus and gay subculture as it comes from London. Charivari.
Charivari. Shit, that rings a bell. Doing my trick of staring up at the ceiling to see if it comes to me. I don't know.
It's the point in the circus where you have a boisterous entrance of a group of clowns.
Okay.
That is a char where the little car comes out and thousands of clowns come out. That's the charivari. The dead ball. This is mainly for carnival workers. What's the dead ball?
For carnival worker.
Mm-hmm. You ever play basket toss when you're at the carnival when you're a kid?
Yeah.
The dead ball is the ball that you have in the bottom of the basket toss game. And so the carnival operator throws a ball in there. See how easy it is?
Right. But it's less springy or less, right. It's deadened.
Right. What the dead ball does is it deadens the bounciness of the basket. So they can toss it in there, but then they scoop all the balls out and hand them to you. And suddenly that dead weight is gone. So your ball bounces right out.
Right.
Yeah, that's the dead ball. Earlier I mentioned hanky pank. Hanky pank, like the age and scale game, is any game where the prize is won almost every time. It's usually for kids. And basically the cost to play is greater than the cost of the prize.
Right.
That's how a lot of money is made. It's called hanky pank. This is a good one. It's not what you think it is. Jackpots.
Well, I don't know then. If it's not a jackpot, I don't know what it is.
It's stories, mainly tall tales and bullshit. If you're sitting around cutting up jackpots, It means that you're trading stories with other circus or carnival performers.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Kind of like what we do, but
right.
Yeah. Couple of names here that get thrown in. What's a jenny? A jenny is a merry-go-round. We also know it as a carousel. Here's another good one. A Larry. Think of Larry Linville from MASH for this one. It's something that is broken or damaged. It could be a person.
Okay.
Don't mess with that. That's a Larry. It's a broken or he's a real Larry. Here's another name. A Clem. Oh, he's gotten himself in a Clem. It's a fight between. It's a fight. Yeah. It's a fight between a worker and a local. Oh, a Clem's broken out.
Okay.
A scram bag is just what you think it is.
A scram bag.
Scram bag.
A go bag is the same.
It's
right.
Yep.
I mean,
I wrote,
the cops are there. There's someone pissed off. You got to go. Right.
Yep. I wrote a go kit with necessities for a sudden departure.
Right.
And here's one, a variation of a word that we hit up a couple of weeks ago, a carny roll.
Oh, a sleeping bag or a bedroll that's rolled out underneath the no.
Nope. It's a variation of the Michigan roll. I think we talked about this. When did we talk about that Michigan roll?
Oh, I'm drawing a blank.
It's where you have one or two big bills wrapped around a whole bunch of little bills.
Oh, right. Sure, right.
Trying to pass it off.
Foster the illusion. Yeah, well, yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's move on. Two more categories. Let's move on to actions. This one's pretty short. Earlier, you were talking about a barker. Well, we've got two words here. There's to bally, which is to call attention to the attraction that you're touting. You are ballying when you do that. Come see the half mermaid, half elephant. And the noun form is where we get ballyhoo. When you perform that, you are
doing a ballyhoo.
Ballyhoo. That's right.
Right.
Taking a Brodie.
I don't know what it is, but I like it. Taking a Brodie.
I'd never heard of this before. Taking a Brodie.
I don't know.
Taking a Brodie is when you take a huge chance on something that is most likely going to end in spectacular failure. It is named after a man named Stephen Brodie, who claims that he allegedly survived. Well, allegedly, because he was there. He allegedly survived a dive from the Brooklyn Bridge in 1887.
Okay, nice.
And no one's sure if he really did, if it was a con job. But if you take a big spectacular chance, you're taking a Brodie on that one, my friend. If the flag's up, it means that the cookhouse is open for your workers in the circus. So you can go grab a hot meal over the cookhouse. To red light something is to toss something out, to trash it.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be to say that you've been fired. They drop you off in the middle of the nowhere, and all you see are the red lights as they drive away. You've been red light.
Okay. Also good.
You're working with another carny, and they drop something important and break it, and you look at them and say, "Hey, you new?" NEW question mark. It's a great insult to give to another seasoned worker who just makes a mistake. What are you, new? It's your first day on the job? You schmuck. Going south. If you're going south, that means you are stealing money.
Oh, okay.
You're stealing it by maybe putting it south into your apron where it shouldn't go.
Right, sure.
And my personal favorite action, I'm going to go read the Midway for a while.
Go to the bathroom.
Nope. That's what I would think of because it's me, but
read the Midway.
I'm going to go read the Midway.
I don't know.
Well, I thought of our friend Marvin when I first read this one. Not because Marvin reads the Midway, but because we once had a customer. We once had a customer who did this when we worked at a record store. Reading the Midway is where you go around and you simply scan the grounds on the Midway for cash and valuables that may have been dropped by your marks. So you're looking for any money rolls, quarters, anything that's been dropped. There was a guy, and I missed him. I only hear stories of him. There was a guy that used to walk the mall looking for pennies on the ground, and his nickname among all the workers in the mall was Pennywise. Got any pennies? Seen any pennies? And he would come around looking for pennies. So one Christmas, Marvin gave him a roll of pennies with a little bow on it for Christmas. I missed Pennywise, though. I only heard stories of him. And finally, the last category, my favorites. I've got 5 my favorites.
Okay.
The key to the Midway. Hey, kid, I know it's your first day on the job. Could you do me a favor and go find the key to the Midway?
Well, we just learned that that's looking for some. I don't know.
Yeah, it's your first day on the job. You're a greenie. You're a gazoonie. I need you to go find me a board stretcher. And while you're at it, look for some red light bulb paint and bring me a left-handed wrench.
You've lost me completely. I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's when you send a new kid as a prank on search for a non-existent object.
Oh, okay.
Screwing with the new guy. Go get me the key to the Midway so we can open up. And you're doing it to both screw with him and the guy that he's going to go bother to go to the manager. Oh yeah, so and so says I need the key to the
what?
Exactly,
right.
exactly. Bryan, you ever heard of a whistling gopher?
A whistling gopher? No, I've not.
A whistling gopher is a mark who might whistle as he walks off after he hears the price of the game. It'll cost you $1. $1, my goodness. And he wanders off. Ignore that whistling gopher. This is a great game, and $1 is not that much to play it. Bryan, do you know what a broad tosser is?
No, I do not.
Broad tosser. I read this one and just it's a 3-card Monte dealer.
Oh, and the broad's the queen, right?
Yep. So you got a queen and then 2 aces, or a queen and 2 kings, and you're tossing that broad all day long. Go ask the broad tosser.
Nice. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. 2 more. Possum belly.
Possum belly. No clue.
Well, when you have a wagon that you're staying in, a possum belly is a storage box that's built under the wagon. And what it does is it's there to hold tools and other items that you might need. And once you've established a carnival thing for a week there, it's a nice open area. So you might use it as a place to take a nap. Oh, he's having a kip in the possum belly. Or you might use it as temporary quarters for your traveling girlfriend. And do you know what she earns the title of when she does that?
The possum liquor.
She becomes your possum belly queen.
Oh, Lord.
I didn't say it wasn't gross. And finally, the very first term that I ever heard about when it came to this, I remember hearing about this as a kid and thought it was great. If you hear a carnival worker shout, "Hey, Rube!" You know what that is?
No.
That is a code word. It's an SOS from one carnival worker to another on the midway that they're having some kind of problem. Maybe with another carnival worker or a drunken Mark who's out of control. You hear the words, "Hey, Rube," and you will suddenly be surrounded by other carnival workers who are there to help you out. Hey,
nice.
Rube. Yeah. And it's
nice.
No one knows what it means. It's a nice little symbol there, and they're suddenly there to help you out. So
sweet.
There you go. Some lingo from the carnival and the circus. This comes from mentalfloss.com. 15 and the title of this one is 15 excellent bits of carnival slang to add to your vocabulary. An article from ranker.com, grammar.yourdictionary.com, and then 2 great websites, including a podcast. I think it's called Ballyhoo. Circusesandsideshows.com that has all kinds of stories about circus life and circus history, and goodmagic.com provided these terms and phrases for dream idiots.
I have to get a t-shirt printed up that said, "Have you pulled a Brodie? Have you pulled a Brodie today?"
Yeah, you pulled a Brodie yet?
That's hands down my favorite one. Reminds me of, and it's not worth describing or explaining why I was doing this, but many years ago, in Austin, I had to go underneath a carnival ride at the Travis County Circus Carnival, and so it was a carnival ride that was, the ride itself was mounted on the bed of an 18-wheeler because it's incredibly portable. You just fold it out. So I was underneath this thing and cracked up laughing because directly underneath this ride was a sleeping bag, because the guy who was operating the ride badly, as it turns out, was sleeping underneath the ride when the carnival was closed. And next to his sleeping bag, there was a couple needles and weirdly like a 10-year-old Playboy. Like, really? It's like a 1985 Playboy.
So he was really in
whatever.
So he was
some stereotypes are true.
He was into knitting and pornography, Bryan. That's
different needles.
Not that kind of needle. We used to have the fireman's picnic every year below my house, which was not nearly as bad as this, but some of the rides they had on there where I do not know how they were legal. I really don't, looking back on it, where it was just like how that thing is still standing and still in operation is beyond me. But hey, when I was a kid and everybody else was talking about running away to the circus, I was the one little boy who wanted to run away to the Chautauqua. So they would, help me with rocks and garbage. Yeah.
Right.
Help me with geek. We're running away to the circus. Well, I'm going to the Chautauqua.
All right, very
All
cool. Yeah, we had lots of great additions to the vernacular we need to adopt there, I think. No, need to work on that. All right. Shifting gears here slightly.
It's time for the Dream Idiot's curse word of the week.
You may recall a number of years ago, the year was 2003, I believe. There's a guy named Dan Savage who is a gay activist and writer, and he decided to, I don't know how he did this 20 years ago, but if you went into Google and you Googled the word Santorum, as in Rick Santorum, who was at the time, do you recall this at all?
No, I remember Rick Santorum. Yeah.
Okay. So Rick Santorum, genuinely a terrible human being, was a U.S. senator from Pennsylvania for a number of years, from 92 to like 2007, 2008 or so. And good old Savage figured out a way using Google such that if you Google just the word Santorum, it turned the word Santorum into a genuinely awful curse word. I'm going to try to turn this into a kind of a contest for Dream Idiot listeners. So Santorum, if you Google, I don't know how to what extent this sullied this man's political career, but Santorum, what he decided was a noun and was the
Bryan.
Right.
God.
Awful. Really, really, really disgusting. Right. But funny. You're wincing.
Yes, I am.
Should we take this out? Should we have to edit this out?
I start off with something so pure and good like carnival talk.
I can maybe we'll edit this out. I'll make a deal with you. I'll edit out the definition. Really, really, really awful.
Just leave my reaction to it.
But my challenge to our listeners, I think DeSantis needs to become a curse word. So I don't quite know what it is, but DeSantis is sort of a perfect verb. So it has the DE in front. So if you've been Santist, you've been what? If you've been DeSantis, because the man is equally awful, just like Mr. Santorum is, Mr. Froth, I think it'd be really, really funny if we turned DeSantis into a curse word. Morris is having a stroke, I think, because I said what I said. Sorry. Our listeners are tough. They can handle it.
Okay.
So if you'd like to play along, feel free to email in and give us your best definition of DeSantis, a verb.
I've got one.
What's that?
A reverse circumcision.
Very good. Yeah, we'll offer some prize. He or she who comes up with the best definition of DeSantis, we'll send you a Dream Idiots t-shirt. And actually, I have one copy of the Pocket Dictionary of the Vulgar Tongue left. So the Dream Idiots Book of Common Prayer. We'll send you a prize. Come up with a really good definition for DeSantis. You'll get a prize, and I'll do my level best to have it turn up in Google results as this moron runs for president.
Oh God.
I should have warned you. I'm sorry. I'm surprised you missed that story.
I had a lot going on in 2003, I guess.
All right,
man.
So
okay.
Yeah, just Google that and laugh. Okay. So as we mentioned at the beginning, February is Black History Month, and there's been a lot going on in I wouldn't say Black history, but in the news related to critical race theory and the AP course related to African American studies, etc., in Florida and in other states across the country. And I decided that I wasn't really up to speed enough and knew sort of definitively what was meant by the words critical race theory. And so I wanted to dive into it in sort of greater detail to make sure I understood exactly what it was, what people were talking about. I kept saying that I was overwhelmingly in favor of it, but I wanted to really wrap my brain around sort of the genesis of CRT and why a whole bunch of apparently ridiculous racist right wingers are so upset about it. Do you know anything about CRT beyond kind of the headlines?
I believe it originally comes out of economic theory.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it is a genuine academic study, and so we're gonna talk here about. I really want to sort of boil this down to a few basic tenets that are not structured or phrased in really heady academic lingo, and make it more, basically as straightforward as we possibly could. In the 1960s, LBJ works to pass the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, because there was this genuine and profound belief that people could look at society and realize, oh wait, black people and brown people are economically disenfranchised. They're struggling. They're more likely to be the victims of all the things that are still victims of today. Why is that? Their rights were bolstered somewhat by trends in the 60s, but by the 70s, social scientists and those that were looking at this stuff more closely thought there would be more of sort of a boost economically for African Americans and Latinx folks in America, and they weren't really seeing it. So they wanted to sort of begin to wrap their brains around why that was the case. So after extensive study and research in these areas, this is critical race theory is not something that was just plucked out of the ether and made up in 2022. There is all this nonsense on Fox News and elsewhere about woke politicians, woke this, woke that. This isn't something that's brand new and was manufactured in the furtherance of some political agenda. This is a genuine, like geology is an academic pursuit. This is a genuine field of study, and it's not just complete nonsense. But I think it's worth, as Americans, regardless of race or economic status, what it is that people are fighting over here. So I'm going to kind of delineate out. There are essentially 6 basic tenets of critical race theory. And I'm going to try to boil them down here. And you tell me where you may or may not disagree with these tenets. First of all, first tenet of critical race theory is that race doesn't really exist. We are all the same race. It's the human race. The biological differences between you and I, and then you and I and a white woman, and you and I and a black man, and you and I and a number of other mammals is incredibly small. So this notion of race in our society is a social construct. Is nothing meaningful about it is tied to sort of biogenetic notions of species. It's all sort of kind of made up. So what people that are termed to be black people or brown people, it's really just sort of a set of psychological and behavioral tendencies, or at least as they were perceived, either positive or negative, good or bad. And then these tendencies and these appearances are then used by people that are overwhelmingly of generally Western European descent. These differences are then used to justify oppression, exploitation, and foster the argument that these groups are whatever, inferior and immoral and unintelligent and incapable of self-rule. So any problem with any of that? Does that make sense to you?
Makes sense to me. Yeah, of course.
Okay. It's I mean, I that was me attempting to make it more simple, but you can dive into it in much greater detail, and it gets incredibly heady and frankly difficult to understand. Second tenet of critical race theory basically is that racism is who we are. Racism is not an aberration. The United States is inherently racist. It may be a spectrum. If you were to ask someone like a Barack Obama or a Jesse Jackson, or go back even further to John Lewis, someone like that, during their lifetime, how has racism changed over time? Are we less racist now than we were at the end of, say, the 19th century, and Jim Crow laws and the KKK and burning of crosses and segregation and white and black restaurants and all the nonsense that went on for a million years and all the crime, etc. It is perhaps better that those profound extremes that were going on for so long have been softened. But there is still the overwhelmingly high propensity for Black Americans, Latinx Americans, to be denied loans, to be denied car loans, home mortgages, to face, as we just discovered in Memphis, Tyree Nichols. If you are a person of color, the odds of you facing unjustified use of force, regardless of whether you've committed a crime or not, is quite a bit higher. And so it's these notions of race and racism that are sort of prevalent and frankly undeniable. If you're Black or you're brown, you lose job opportunities, you get inferior medical care, all those stereotypes that are true. So that's number two. Any problems with that?
Not from where I said no.
Okay. Also, tied to that is all the microaggressions that come with that. People, women clutching their purse when there's a Black person near them, people crossing the street when they see a Black guy coming down the street. All that's sort of baked into racism, is ever present and real. It's great. So number three, third tenet of critical race theory is this notion of interest convergence. And so this is when it starts to get a little more complex, but I think there is still a boatload of merit here. There's a guy named Derek Bell who has been integral in furthering CRT over the years. He's a law professor at Harvard. He makes the argument that things like Brown versus Board of Education exist. This notion of separate but equal exists solely because occasionally in our history, it is worthwhile to foster the illusion of equality if it's beneficial to the white person. So you reach a point in the 1950s where there were a lot of white folks who were really concerned about unrest among Black people. So we have to give them something. Brown versus Board of Education. How does that help you? Does that make you feel better? You had in World War II and in Korea, Black and white soldiers and brown soldiers, obviously, all serving together as equals. And then there was this fear or this notion that we're going to all go back to our lives in regular society. And if I'm a Black man living in America, I have to go back to being less than, subservient to these people. And so this notion of interest convergence is what those that foster CRT believe is integral to sort of this movement and why some of these issues were put forth. That's number three. Any problems with that one?
No, I mean, it speaks to a certain kind of no, I'll just say no for now. Yeah, no.
Okay, right. Okay. Number four is again, I'm taking most of this from Britannica.com. There's a boatload of other stuff out there you can read about in Google, and thousands and thousands of pages. Fourth tenet of CRT is that there is differential racialization. What does that mean? Okay. End of the 19th century, very, very first part of the 20th century, how are Black people portrayed in media or in film, in whatever culture was available at the time? Well, end of the 19th century, early 20th century, Black people are portrayed as being simple-minded. They're being childlike. They're stupid. They're laborers. They're content, frankly, being subordinate, and they love segregation. You get in the 50s and 60s, then that starts to trend a little bit, and then the Black people, especially Black men, are they're prone to violence, or they're lazy simultaneously, which seems weird to me, and they're living off social welfare, and they're just a burden on society. So, I mean, this is an overwhelmingly clear trope that's present with us even now. So that's number four. Any problems with that one?
No, I mean,
Right. Of course not. It's very, very straightforward. Number 5 is this notion of intersectionality. So again, this is a very, very logical argument to be made. And, basically it states that if you're a black man living in America, you are other things besides just black. Maybe you are, who knows what. You're a black woman. You could be also gay. You could be a feminist. You could be a Baptist. You could be who knows what. But to pigeonhole everyone into just a racial category is overly simplistic, and from a social science standpoint, doesn't really make any sense, because people are more complex than that. And so this racism winds up being baked in because assumptions are made of people that are just overly simplistic. You can't be a gay black man, and maybe you're, if you do volunteer work, or your trend or your interest in being an activist may pull you more toward gay rights issues than black rights issues, and that's totally fine. But this overly simplistic viewpoint basically enhances this notion of racism. Also, very, very simple, straightforward argument. People are more complex than just the one thing that they are. The last thing, the sixth tenet.
You also see this I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No.
at the same time, you see this in like another example of this is when you start getting into the second and third wave feminism, where feminism isn't just about white women feminism. There's also the intersections of race,
Right,
and
absolutely,
sexual identity, and all of these things that come in with women saying, well, wait a minute, we're not all white, we're not all straight, we're not all this and that. And this whole idea of intersectionality occurs, as it should, at many intersections, right? I mean, it occurs across a spectrum, a swath of humanity that makes so much sense, that we are all complex individuals. We all have, I mean, it's this idea, I hear this today when people get into fights over the Second Amendment, and an online friend of mine is like, you know what they forget is they forget that liberals have guns too. And it's like,
right. Yeah,
wow,
absolutely.
that's the kind of intersectionality that kind of just like, whoa, I didn't expect that, didn't see that coming. So anyway, I thought I'd
Right, absolutely right. And I would also contend, even though, I mean, I don't want to have that straight white male entitlement and pretend that I know what I'm thinking, know what I'm saying about this, but I would speculate that lesbian women view sexuality, issues of their sexuality, different than straight women do, right? Because the subtleties and nuances of attraction and sexual identity are very, very complex. You can't just say female sexuality is this. No, it's not. It's much more complex than that. And I don't know, when folks want to do this black and white approach on issues, it just drives me freaking crazy.
Or look at asshat Andrew Tate, right? Who's
right. Who happily is hopefully he's enjoying some Santorum right now. Sorry.
For the love of God. Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying his construction of masculinity is something entirely different from, I mean,
yeah, it's hopefully way outside the norm. And I mean, he's playing sort of a character, I fucking hope. But you have to assume that he doesn't, even though apparently he's wildly popular with, fucking middle school boys who are being taught a horrendous lesson, but that's not representative of the average 35-year-old straight man and anywhere. Like, he's crazy, right?
Hopefully,
we'll see. So number 6 is kind of the one that I'm not sure I understand, to be honest. From Britannica.com, 6, the voice of color thesis. The voice of color thesis holds that people of color are uniquely qualified to speak on behalf of other members of their group or groups regarding the forms and effects of racism. This consensus has led to the growth of, quote, legal storytelling, unquote, movement, which argues that the self-expressed views of victims of racism and other forms of oppression provide essential insight into the nature of the legal system. I'm not saying that's not valid. I'm just saying not sure I quite understand it. I believe it's basically saying believe everyone. And if one black person's experience of racism is different or perhaps not as extreme as what Tyree Nichols faced in Memphis just recently, that both those stories are true. I think that's what that's saying, but I'm not sure. Any thoughts?
I not not within the time limitations of this podcast. I just
Okay.
I'd have to ruminate on that, but I think what it gets to is this idea that any kind of ism isn't necessarily the most abrupt and obvious form, that it can take many forms, and there has to be an acknowledgement that all forms of it are examples of that racism or sexism or ism of that kind. Now you're getting into legal realms though. So I'm not sure I'm making that connection, but I think I kind of see what they're getting at.
Yeah, that one's a little more esoteric, kind of hard to wrap your brain around. But in reading down this, I mean, I read a whole bunch of other things as well, just trying to make sure I understood exactly what's going on. You can go on. I mean, there is the Goldwater Institute and Fox News and all of these, Family Research Council, all these groups that have pages on their websites about critical race theory that basically excoriate it as being fear-based mumbo jumbo that is designed to make Tyler and Skylar fearful or make them feel guilty for being white. And that couldn't be further from the truth. If you are someone in Florida who is a Republican and a supporter of Ron DeSantis, you have lost your damn mind. I mean, this is as much as worthy of study as geology and the crater at Chicxulub, which we discussed a million years ago, as anything else. And to pretend that it's anything beyond just naked, blatant racism is absurd. And seeing as this is Black History Month, I think it's important for all of us, especially the people that are like us, 50-year-old straight white men who should know better, should shut their pie holes. And when this issue comes up in front of your school board or in your state or with your state representative, you fucking call your representative and you tell them, I support critical race theory. I think this is a vital issue that every child in my state or my city should learn about. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, well, it gets back to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. As an ally, make space for other voices and get out of the way.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah.
Provide support, make space, get out of the way.
Right. Shut your hole. Anyway, just some thoughts.
Indeed. that was some heavy stuff, Bryan.
Well, I was trying not to make it. I intentionally had something wildly off color in order to have it be some levity, but it's complex, important stuff. And if you see these right-wing lunatics who say that Tyree Nichols' death is not racism because all the cops were black, they are out of their damn mind. If they say that, they know it's racism. And that poor kid, young man, lost his life for no fucking reason because our country is screwed in the head. So make sure your children learn, regardless of their race, learn issues like these and know what the hell they're talking about. And thanks for listening.
I concur. Well, we went from circuses to that thing in the middle that you talked about to critical race theory. And I guess I'll end up by saying what I always say, which is thanks for listening and be good to each other.
Thanks for listening, folks. Listen to us or give us 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And thanks for all the stuff you're doing. And we'll be back again pronto.
Bye.
This is a Rough Tiger production.
Bong bong,
Mm-hmm.
Bryan.
Bong bong?
Bong bong.
Bong bong. Good.